Welcome to the Greater Culture Podcast, where we have conversations about how to elevate the quality of life through movement, nutrition, recovery, and mindset practices. Welcome to another episode of the Greater Culture Podcast with your host, Brad Marshall. And today, really excited to be joined by CEO and head coach over at Brute Strength, Matt Torres, who's been in the space for a long time. He's got a lot of experiences, a lot of time helping out athletes achieve their goals. And I'm excited to dive into some of the things he's learned over the years. So Matt, thanks so much for spending some time with me on the podcast today.
For sure, man. Thanks for having me on this podcast. I look forward to seeing what I have and the questions that you have for me.
Yeah. And so, like I said, you've been in the space for a long time, and specifically the CrossFit space. I always think it's really interesting and fascinating to hear people's story of how they came to find fitness and how they got into coaching. So love to hear a little bit more from you about how did you find your way into this whole fitness world and get into coaching?
So when I graduated from college, 2011, decided that, I guess this is a story that has probably been told a couple times from a lot of people. And I feel like it's like just pretty a normal CrossFit experience. Needed something more, needed to be competitive again. And so enter me into my local CrossFit gym. And just the way my brain works is just I need to understand why things work the way they do and how to improve them. So I asked my gym owner at that time, I was there for about 8 months, what it took to run one of these things. And then about 6 months later, I opened one across town. Through that process right there, it was, I owned 2 CrossFit gyms. And the most difficult thing was, how do you run a business? The coaching side of it always came very natural to me. And that's part of the reason why I decided to even, step away from that side of the business and go into ownership of a digital platform as well. But yeah, that all started in 2013. I think I was 24 years old, and, I learned a lot, as all of us did, the hard way most of the time. And that continues to be how I learn, is the hard way. But yeah, now it's, more than 10 years later, and like I said, both the gyms are sold, and I'm currently sitting in as the leader of Brute. And it's a whole other world of opportunity, and a whole other world of struggle, and a whole other world to continue to learn and develop as a leader.
Yeah, I think that story does resonate with a lot of folks. Of you get into this thing called CrossFit, you find some passion for it, you enjoy it, and you figure out, how do I continue to spread this? So what gave you sort of the confidence, or really the ability to say, hey, I want to step out on my own and open a gym, especially after such a short time of being involved in the space? What was that process like of going from athlete to, hey, let's go ahead, coach people and run a business?
Mm-hmm. So in between graduating from college and CrossFit, I was coaching the wide receivers at a local high school. I played college football, and I grew up in that town that I was back home from, and so it just was very natural. And me as a person, and my personality is, I don't do a lot of talking if I don't know the subject at hand. So I listen and I'm watching. And so I think from listening and watching just through sport, and seeing how other people are affected by communication, seeing, what comes out of that, especially in a team sport, and you have to trust your teammates. If I'm running a bubble route as a slot receiver, I got to trust that my receiver outside of me is to be blocking for me, because I'm blind and I'm not looking at him. And so there's a lot of trust that's developed. And I took all that, and as I started to develop as a coach through, gym ownership, I found that I had a passion for it. Seeing the connections being made as far as, what needs to be communicated to this person to help them achieve their goal. And that type of communication, it almost brought this like desire to be the best at it. And that right there just came from, honestly, like siblings. I competed against my brother what felt like every single day for 7 days a week. If it wasn't racing outside, it was racing on a bike. If it wasn't on a bike, it was playing basketball. If it's not that, it's playing football. It's playing football on your knees in the living room. It's playing baseball. It's playing tennis. It's video games. It's like it consumed me everywhere. And for the most part, I lost to them. And so, you know, I get good at something and I want to be better and I want to be the best. And I even think that like, you know, I think back at about probably like 8 years ago when I started this journey as just a simple remote coach. My mentor at that time asked me, "What do you want to be? Like, what's your goal?" And I very specifically remember telling him, like, I want to be known as the best coach with, and at that time, I was like the Ben Bergerons of the world, the Dusties of the world, like all these coaches that I thought I looked up to. It was just, it drove me. And I never want to be just considered just another. I always want to be on the top. And it's really just what drives me is the passion. And also, I guess, the fear of not being on top.
Hmm. I also hear in there that competition is something that's really driven you as an athlete, as someone growing up with siblings, of competitive with yourself, of figuring out how do I learn this thing and get better at it to see if I can be potentially the best at whatever the endeavor is, sport, coaching, now business ownership. And along the way, I imagine too, in those early days of owning an affiliate, there wasn't as many resources as there are nowadays for folks to get development and figure out how do I run a business? How do I get better as a coach? So what were some of the things that you were doing at that stage of your career of figuring out, hey, I really do love this thing. I want to get better at coaching. I want to get better at owning this business. How are you working on building that?
So the first thing I came to terms with is that research and development is vital as a business owner. First thing that me and my business partner at that time did was we signed up for this seminar, and I think this one was by Two Brain Gym. This was way back in the day. And it was really great because that seminar taught us, that we need to be charging correctly, that we need to be charging for our services, and that, there's a process of, what bills need to be, at what time bills need to be paid, like put all the bills on the front end, so on and so forth. Come back and immediately we started charging for our on ramp. It used to be free. We charged for our on ramp at that time. We took away this like thing that used to be part of CrossFit. It was drop in, get a free shirt. And it's just like what we knew. So we took that away. We're like, okay, drop in value is this much, shirt value is this much. And all of a sudden it's like, we just saw numbers increase. The next thing that really helped us out a lot was the next seminar that we signed up with was with Bergeron. And this seminar was more about um, the relationship side of the business and how important it is to build the relationship to keep your clients and putting people in the place that comes natural to them, right? So the combination of those two is what started to show us like more and more growth. And so that's what I believe is, and that's still a part of me now, even as a remote coach, is my research and development is reading, learning, understanding, testing, trialing, and fixing. Where, back when I was a gym owner, that was it. We had to do research and development. And every year we decided that we needed to do one thing that was going to allow us to go out, for a weekend or a week, however long, and do some R&D for the company.
Yeah, that investment in yourself to get the skills, the knowledge, the capabilities to go and then deliver the product to whoever the end user is critical. And so having that investment early has paid dividends. What is your strategy and process now for R&D? Because now there's so many resources out there, from YouTube to podcasts to books to seminars and lectures. What have you found for you that seems to work pretty well to continually focus on learning and growing as a professional?
Yeah. So currently it's having a mentor and having the right people around you to bounce ideas. And so, the way Brute is structured is, I have my two partners with me, and one's on the legal side and one is, the head of remote programming. And when I have ideas, it makes me feel better when I talk them through. And then we also work with another third party mentorship um, consultant that allows us to like deep dive on everything. So if I have this idea and I have a lot of them and a lot of them don't stick, and sometimes I'm like trying to get one thing done and I'm already like thinking of like the next like 18 steps, being able to talk it through and understand. And then the other thing was trust. Uh, you know, if you own something, you want it to be your vision, but you have to trust that other people's input is going to help your vision, as long as everyone is on that vision and the goal is like pointed in the same direction. And that's what I do. And it's taken a lot of stress off my plate to say, you know, this is what my thoughts are. And someone gives me feedback on it and I go, all right, let's roll with that. Because if I agree with it and that person feels like I'm listening to them, then together we're going to be able to, work alongside each other to continue to proceed to hit our goal. And so I think that's the biggest thing right now is having the right people around you to support, and then having even like a third party, specifically right now for Brute, to help with put this vision and these goals together.
Yeah, I think that speaks to how important having mentorship or just people in general that you can trust, that when you bounce those ideas off of them, they can give you that honest, critical feedback of, yes, that's a good idea. No, it's not a good idea. And it might help you to eliminate some of those mistakes and pitfalls that, us as gym owners or as business owners make along the way. If we get the good idea fairy strikes and we just want to do all these things, and you're like, whoa, let's take our time with it. And is that something that you learned over the years, or is that something that from the get-go you were pretty committed to, of having sort of that inner circle that you'd use for mentorship and guidance?
It's something that I think I had but didn't realize I needed. So as an athlete growing up, you have it in a coach. And I had it all the way through college. And then, when you're working for a company, you have it in your manager. And so naturally, when I'm off by myself and going through this, it feels great to be like, I don't have to listen to anybody. But you do need some sort of structure. And I think that's what I figured out that I need is, I have these ideas, I need a compass to show me the way, and as long as I'm open and I'm not going to take anything personal, and I can see that the help is coming, and I can see if we apply one thing that it'll continue to progress and progress and progress. I think that's kind of what I've discovered. And I think for a lot of these entrepreneurs is, if you're a visionary type of entrepreneur where you just have ideas flowing out of your mind all the time, you do need something or someone that will help structure. And that's where I find myself.
And I get the sense that once you have some of that vulnerability of knowing what your strengths are and things you're good at, and you can round out your team to fill some of the gaps or just help to support you, you notice how much further you can take a business or an idea or a concept and bring it to light. So it sounds like that vulnerability and realizing, hey, if I implement these structures, has certainly helped you, as well as the vision you have for Brute now to evolve into what it is today.
Exactly. And we have such tremendous goals for Brute. It kind of makes me nervous and scares me and then excites me, all in the same tone. But yeah, it's the way that I discovered that really works for me and really works for my team.
I imagine that same feeling is what you're hoping your athletes have as well, of they've got goals and aspirations that should scare them just a little bit to get them out of their comfort zone, that allows them to do the necessary things to try and achieve them.
Yeah, and there's these moments throughout the year where you just feel different. And I can speak specifically for Dallin, and James. It was a different level of communication because James is not currently with me. I coach him remotely. But there was this change in Dallin where it was like, man, he's got something different. And I feel like it could be something extremely special. And it's almost like this energy that you want to keep balled up. You don't want to give too much emphasis on it, but And that's kind of like where I'm trying to get to for the business as well, is I want to get to that point where it's like, I know that the things that we've been doing are starting to come to fruition, and I can feel that change, and with these athletes, and I can think of the moments of these points of change throughout the year, and where Dallin was, where James was, and when they started to believe these things. And Dallin and James are two completely different athletes. James thrives on competition, and so he needs to see more frequently that the things he's doing is paying off. And so you might see that, he's with Cole, and he is constantly competing. He's signing up for, these reps ahead. It's constant. Whereas we're Dallin on the other hand, he doesn't need that. He likes to conserve. He likes to keep his energy to himself, and hold on to it. So when it's necessary, he's able to let it all out and go, I saved the whole entire year. Now I can really showcase myself.
Yeah, it's really fun when you experience some of those inflection points or those moments that you're like, something's different here. And I'd love to see, are there any inflection points that come to mind for you with Brute? Because I think you get excited and you really believe in what you're building and what you have. But sometimes you do need some of that external validation of like, yeah, there is something special here. It is going on the path that you like. Is there anything that comes to mind for you over the years where you were like, hey, we're onto something, we're on the right track, we got to stay the course here, and I'm getting a stronger sense of belief in what we can accomplish?
With Brute, it's interesting because my number one goal and my number one role with Brute is to create champions. And so for everything to flow the way we want it to, I need my number one thing to happen. And when you're in a position where you're just working with younger athletes, you're almost like, okay, when is this going to happen? And so we kind of see this progression with our athletes where it's like, they're improving, they're improving, they're improving. And I would say to start this year, there was some adversity that I was faced with athletes leaving, coaches leaving, to go to other programs. And I was questioning myself a lot, and I still do. But what ended up happening is I took this emotion of being mad, and I use it as motivation in a way where I'm like, and I know this wasn't happening, but if I don't do more studying, if I don't figure this thing out quicker, then the things that people are saying about me is going to come true. They don't think I'm good at coaching. They don't think that I can create champions. They don't think that Dallin is fast enough. They don't think that he's good at handstand push-ups. They don't think that James has what it takes to, be top 15 at the games this year. I'm creating these thoughts in my mind to help push me every single day to, coach Dallin the way he's supposed to be coached, to coach James the way he's supposed to be coached as well. And it was throughout this year I'm like, man, you stop thinking about ways of where it's like, if the programming just goes in this direction, we're going to do really well. And then it started becoming, if you throw anything at us, we're going to do really well. And then it started becoming, once we start to beat these older athletes, there's no way they're catching us again. And you start to develop this confidence because the numbers are showing, the work is improving, the theories that I had to practice this past year that I've never done before was paying off. And so when you go into a competition, James, West Coast, amazing. Dallin, East, amazing. That right there is the type of confidence that we needed, that I knew that it was bad for everybody else at that time. Because I say this from a level of confidence because I haven't been shown anything different. Once these two athletes show that they can achieve this, they are not letting it go. Specific to movements, paces, strength, they're not letting it go. And so that comes from a place of confidence for myself and then through my athletes.
Yeah, the mechanics that you just described there about building confidence and how we do that, it starts with the way we talk to ourselves and what's the conversation like that's unfolding in your head. And you mentioned that there's moments of doubts and insecurities and is this the right path? Are we on the right track? And that happens for all of us. And then finding the personal experience that helps us to shore up some of that confidence, changes the narrative, changes the way we talk to ourselves. All of a sudden now I even can hear it in the excitement you get of like those inflection points and those moments where you're like, hey, this is a lot of great information, data, and skills that like we're building confidence on. And now it's different. The way we talk to ourselves is different. The way we show up is different. The way that we look at and approach workouts and situations is different. So it sounds like going out and finding those inflection points that led you to build confidence now puts you in a whole different realm of excitement, but also feeling a more sense of sureness walking into any environment, regardless of West Coast, East Coast games, etc.
Yeah. And I think like even talking about it brings out those same emotions of like working from behind. And it doesn't necessarily stop. We're in a sport where we don't know what the events and the workouts might be. And so it keeps me at a constant state of discovering, which keeps me away from complacency, which allows me to discover alongside with my athletes. And I'm extremely grateful that my athletes put so much trust in my ability because I know what I'm going to get out of them from return. And just like the more I think about it, I don't know how the world brought us together, but to be able to have my athletes that I have, it's been incredible because it works so well with the way that I
I
operate.
think finding the right fit for an athlete and coach and that relationship to be stronger is really paramount for anybody who's searching for a goal or working towards a certain outcome. And you mentioned that one of the visions you have for Brute is to be a place for champions and to help people build and work their way into that role. Has that always been sort of the bigger vision that's kind of been in the back of your head as you even started this journey, way back when opening a CrossFit affiliate? Because I think when you look at what the affiliates do and you look at folks who enjoy competing and folks who want to just get healthier for just general wellness, there's so many different ways that people get excited about or focus on their health and their fitness and establish their goals. So from you as sort of an entrepreneur in business, was that always kind of the vision of like, hey, we want to be the best, we want to create champions in whatever realm that looks like? Or is that something that sort of evolved over the last 10 plus years?
It's something that's sort of evolved over the last 10 plus years. When we opened up a gym, it was we want to be the best gym in town. How do we do that? We allow people to reach their goals. And so when people are coming in, they're saying, "Well, why is it the best gym?" Yeah, I hit my goals. You might hear from people that they care about me. You might hear from someone else that I got stronger than I've ever been. You might hear from people saying like I've gained the most confidence that I've ever gained in my life just in the time I spent going to that gym. And you can see stuff like that. When I'm in this position now with Brute, so that was affiliate gym. Now with Brute, what I do is I look at other successful companies or what I deem as successful. Mayhem was one of the first ones. That was a champion in Rich Froning, a champion for, I think he won three, maybe four, I'm not sure. Uh, the next one was, I think together, Proven and HWPO. What do they have in common? They have champions. And, there's it's a theme that I carried with me where I just thought, okay, they're creating champions over there. They have champions over there. That's what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to create a champion. And I know that my programming is good for them. I know that my coaches on staff have the same philosophy as programming. And I believe that these athletes that we've had for so long believe it just as much as we do. So there's that similar feeling across the board. How do we get that feeling out to the masses of the belief is circling around us, the energy is all in the same direction? how do we get that? And, you know, we just have to continue to develop champions. And it doesn't matter, you know, if you want to be the fittest in your gym, do the RX and, you know, win a majority of the time, you're going to be the champion of your gym. I think that's the philosophy that I am at. It's not necessarily Brute's philosophy. We're going to build a champion, but that's where I'm at with it. Is, you know, we went from developing a culture and an affiliate of we're going to be the best in our area to we're going to be the best in the world, uh, as far as the building a champion goes.
Yeah, and it makes sense that the learning, the mentorship, the progressions you're doing to put yourself in that space, and then you have people who are actually following through, backing that up is certainly helpful as well. And figuring out for folks individually, like, what does that definition mean for you to be a champion, and how do we help to cultivate and collaborate a relationship that allows you to get there? You mentioned that it can be hard to cast the vision because you get excited and internally you kind of have this idea of what it looks like, what it sounds like, what do you want it to be, but being able to communicate that is the challenge. So what are things you found or ways that you've worked on trying to communicate that, of taking this idea and this concept and this vision that you have and now sharing it with the masses so that others can get on board and join you?
Yeah, so that's something that we are currently developing right now, is how do we develop, and I would say in a broad, I guess, like brush, is marketing. Marketing today is a little bit different, and it's actually it's done in a way that's a little bit more like, you know, TV. You know, we can have 5 to 7 minute series of videos describing what the athlete's day looks like. Uh, we can have another series of videos describing what the athlete's training looks like. We have another series of videos describing what competition looks like. And what it does, it allows the viewers to take a step behind the scenes and say, okay, I can see how all this works together to achieve that goal. That is something that we are currently in the process of rolling through right now. And admittingly, we don't currently have. And prior to this, it was a different landscape. Brute started in 2014. At that point in time, you could slap CrossFit. You can have, you know, all these fit people on your website, and a lot of people are like, "Ooh, I want to look like them. I want to look." And there wasn't any questioning yet. Now we live in a time where a lot of people question. They want to know, you know, okay, they know very clearly. For example, Dallin looks the way he does because he's put in 8+ years of training. There's no possible way that I can do that. But what they might need to consider is, okay, but what is he doing on habit wise daily, right? Because if I can start to just achieve that, maybe the, you know, the look will come, but the habits need to start. And so if they're able to see, you know, Dallin does go to bed at this time, Dallin does eat this much, Dallin also doesn't feel immaculate when he's going into training. You know, when they see all these things, that brings in like a very humanistic approach to what someone that is at the highest level of the game, anyone can do the things that he does habit wise, even though they're not able to do the things that he does that we see on TV. And so that's kind of what we're developing out right now, is marketing. And I say this because we're just at a different time. And that's the thing that needs to happen. That's the thing that will be happening, and it's something that we are extremely excited about, to be able to share that, because not only is it like great for us as a company, but it's awesome as a viewer. I watch it all the time. I'm stuck on YouTube because I want to see how things are happening. I want to watch. Sometimes I'll be watching other programs to see what they're doing, to see what they're putting out there. And so, you know, it's just one of those things that's just where we're at currently in this current place and time.
Yeah, I've heard it said, and it really resonated with me, that every small business has to think of themselves as a media company, because you can't showcase and share your brand with the world unless you have platforms and outlets to do so. And we get excited about doing the thing, coaching, helping people get healthier, fitter, etc. We've got to have a way of sharing that with others. And I think, I've certainly seen, and maybe you have as well, that people really gravitate towards your mission and your values and like what your story and what you stand for. And they want to align themselves with brands and with companies that have shared similar visions and passions and things like that. So they see the cool people doing all the stuff, but they're like, oh man, the messaging and what they stand for and this and that, like that's what I get behind. And that's what causes people to choose where they go. And it can be really hard and challenging, I think, to tell some of those stories and to try and communicate the excitement and the vision and the values you have in a way that's meaningful and relevant for them.
I agree. I agree 100%. And it's something that we can all do by ourselves, whether we are a head coach at an affiliate, we own the affiliate, or we are a remote coach, whatever the case may be, is what do you do? What is something that you could share with other people that potentially can use your product or service that may allow them to understand? And that's really how I currently, just for me, not for Brute, but when I'm posting on my platform, it's okay, how will this help everybody? And how quickly can I get this message out in the most short, concise type of way where there's a lot of important points that they can just take away and be like, oh, okay, I can see why you did that. Or maybe they're asking me questions on why I did something like that and why I didn't do something else. And so that's kind of my 2 cents on, the reason why I would go about posting, and especially with being just a local coach, it doesn't seem like it might do much at first, but if you're affecting people's lives in a positive way, there's someone else out there that I hope would want to understand a little bit more detail to see if they could potentially help them.
Yeah, and I think that's something I appreciate too about the way that you post is there's a simplicity and there's a succinctness to it as well, of just like it's short, it's to the point, it gives you something you need, and it's helpful, it's relevant for everybody, and it moves on. And I think having those short stories that you can tell, having those ways that you can connect with people are super important, because it really is about building that relationship, and you're essentially trying to build some level of trust over social platforms, that maybe a conversation starts and then we can take it offline and build from there, which is an area that I am actually curious to hear from your perspective, because being in this space for as long as you have, a lot of folks would say it's a very relationship driven business. You have to build trust, you have to build sureness with whoever you're working with, and then a coach in any level. So what are some of the things that you have found? Because like you said, athletes, they come and go. Athletes at the gym come and go. Some stick around longer than others. What are some of the ways that you have found to build trust and build relationships with athletes so that they can be vulnerable with you as a coach and share some of their shortcomings, the areas they want to improve, the goals they have that maybe they've never told anybody before, and you can walk them through that process?
Mm-hmm. I think just having an open line of communication. The way I coach, and at Brute we call it people-centered programming. So the way I coach is uh, I will ask Dallin where he feels like he needs to improve. I've taken the things that he's talking about, and I start to ideate the different ways that we can achieve this, and I'll put them up on a board. And it looks crazy, but like imagine like a whiteboard, and Dallin's like word vomiting all the areas that he feels like he needs to improve in order to be better. And I'm looking at it and I'm like circling priorities and I'm like moving them and I'm like writing down ideas. And he's like, no to this, but yes to that. Maybe if we change this and change that. It starts with that. And then it kind of extends out. So anytime, I think this is also like a good area for the reason why we moved to Jacksonville. We used to be in Naples, Florida. It's a little bit more expensive down there. And I started thinking like, okay, what can I do for these athletes that would allow them to achieve their goal and take a little more stress off of their plate? Started looking around Florida, Jacksonville, great city, a lot. They can, we can take these athletes on a little bit younger, and they're not going to be stretched financially. And so when I'm sharing that vision with my athletes, it gives them the opportunity to see like, hey, look, I grew up here my whole life. I'm stepping away from this to allow you guys to do amazing things. You guys trusted me. You moved down to Naples, and this is my plan. What are your thoughts? And from that point, it's like, hey, whatever you think is going to be best, we're going to follow. And so I think just like the communication is the way. Being transparent as much as possible. And I'm really transparent when I know what I want. In the process of figuring out what I want, I will not be transparent because I'm still trying to figure out if this is the right thing. And so you don't want to be overly communicative, at least in the position that I'm in. And so once I understand thoroughly what I want, I could field any question and I can answer it back with confidence. Or I can say, you know what, I don't know that answer, but that's a good question. I have to figure that out clearly. Let me come back to you on that. I think the way you respond to things is also another way to build trust in people, whether it's employees or whether it's athletes.
Yeah, having that strong communication that you can be transparent with folks when it's appropriate and relevant is incredibly helpful. And having that open line of communication allows for folks to feel like they can share. They can tell you, hey, this is going well, this isn't going well. And I like that idea of the brainstorming of people-centric programming where, hey, let's figure out what you want to achieve. Let's figure out where you're deficient, where you're strong, and let's build an entire system and program around that. How have you seen this play out in terms of having clients or having athletes over years? Because I think if we look at the space, folks who have a coach that they've built a strong level of trust with and have been with them for years tend to seem like they do a little bit better. And there's maybe a little bit more confidence there versus folks who are still searching for the right fit for them. So what are things that you've seen that have allowed you to have longevity with some of the athletes? Because you mentioned like having coached some of them for years now, you have a pretty deep understanding of how they operate and how they work. But there's also, there's going to be good times and bad times in that frame. So what has helped you to sustain relationships over the long haul?
Yeah, I think the most important thing for the level of athletes that I have is they need to see improvement. Even so, example would be Dallin ran a 5K, let's call it like 21:30. We said, hey, this is going to be very important for us to achieve. 6 months later, he tested a 5K and got a 19:11. So he saw improvement. Fast forward to the CrossFit Games this year, we knew that he was faster at his 1 mile. We didn't know how much faster. Anyway, he ran his 1 mile. And I think just in that event, not the 1 mile and the sand stuff, but in that event, I think he got like somewhere between like 12 or 15. And so he knows 12 or 15 is not acceptable, but I know I've gotten better. And so it allows him to look back and say, if I was in this position last year, 12 or 15th probably would have been 25 to 30th. And that would have hurt me a lot in the competition. And so we see it and it motivates and it gets him excited because if he can achieve that in just 1 year, imagine what he's going to be able to do in 2 years, in 3 years. Imagine the year that comes where he's being top 5. And guess what? We don't have to do running 3 days a week anymore because we already have that ability to hold that. And unless you can prove us otherwise, then we can start to focus on other things in training. And so that is how an athlete of that caliber will develop trust in a coach, and the relationship can continue to build out from there. And again, like I've told this to one of my athletes, maybe it was Dallin, honestly. I was like, man, my purpose is to build a champion and build this business. And it's seeming so much more difficult to build the business, but it should have been much more difficult to create like the number 1 and the number 2 fittest people in the world. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm all twisted around right now, but at the very least, for the short time being, we can hold on to the thing of what these guys have achieved. And now I have to find this way to get the success that I have as a coach. I have to find a way to get that same type of success as a business owner, as a leader. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot more pressure, I feel like, at times throughout the year to be the leader of the business than it is to be the coach, because it's something as a coach where I'm like, I just feel like every year we just kept on improving. And I don't know why, but we're finding a way to get it done. And it's like, okay, I have this new baby that I have to build, and I have a lot of employees that have trust in me that I'm doing the things necessary. And it's like, I'm stressing out because I'm like, am I making this employee happy? Is this person, do they have faith in me? Does this person have faith in me that I can achieve this thing? And all in the same time, I'm stressing out because I don't even know if I have faith in myself. But as a coach, I feel like I'm there as far as like, I know what I need to be doing. I just need to continue to do this and continue to build and build as far as like, what's the next thing I need to be focusing in on as a coach. I need to continue to work running. I need to continue to work gymnastics. And like, it's just like those types of things, I guess, in a long-winded answer is how I see people building relationships, and that lasts longer is showing progress.
Yeah, I think you just highlighted every entrepreneur, small business owner's daily life in a nutshell there of like, hey, I've got this thing. I feel like I'm really good at that, but then I'm trying to grow the business and I'm trying to do and balance all these things. And something you said there that I think really resonated is at the end of the day, it comes down to results. And for any long-term relationship, they have to continually see results. If it's the athletes at the gym, they have to be progressing towards their goals. If it's a business owner, figuring out what the goals are for your employees and are they getting the results that they want and moving in the direction that they want. So it keeps coming back to, as much as we can cast a vision and establish what we're all about in our brand, we do also have to deliver results. And what does that look like for folks? And if we're delivering those results time and time again, it would make sense then that people would want to stick around. They appreciate what you're being able to provide them. They appreciate the direction that they're going and they're moving. And if we keep coming back to those factors, that can be helpful. And I think, for someone like Dallin or James, when you can look at a leaderboard and say, hey, here's results, we're moving in a certain direction or certain workouts or times. Sometimes I think it is challenging when you look at the affiliate or athletes who are coming in and say, hey, I've got a goal, want to lose some weight, want to feel better, want to be able to play with my kids. And they settle into routines and rhythms, and it can be challenging to figure out, hey, are we still seeing the results that we'd like? And along those lines, you said you're seeing trends in the right direction. Is there ever times where the trends are not going in the direction that you'd like, and now we have to go back to the drawing board a little bit and say, ooh, something's not right here? We should be seeing certain results based on what I think and what we're programming, but we're not there. What do those conversations look like? Or how do you handle those situations with people? Because if fitness was linear, it'd be a beautiful thing, but it's not always the case.
Yeah. So I think the answer is you have to ask more questions to discover more of the ways you need to specifically attack the thing. So I think a very simple way is like this. As an affiliate owner, I used to be in charge of people's first intro meetings. And one thing that I've come to realize was at that time, I was very excited about CrossFit, and I knew that it did so well, and I would talk about it so much. And I just didn't see the same type of energy being returned back to me. So probably years down the line, I just constructed this questionnaire. And the purpose of my questionnaire was to pull out an emotion from the client that's coming in to see me and figure out if I could really figure out the purpose as to why. And so what I discovered was I need to ask more questions because my answers that I'm searching for will be there. And so I have this story where, I am mentoring a new coach, and again, he's fell into the trap of what I felt in: talk, how great CrossFit is. And I go, hey, look, just follow this sheet, just exactly how it is, right down the line, and trust me on this. This is like day one. All right. And he's reading it line by line. And it sounds like you're reading like, you know, like there's no like back and forth conversational type of talk. And, you know, the answers that are being told back was, you know, and I could see the emotion start to come from this lady that was with us. She was like, you know, I feel like I'm in the worst shape of my life. I don't like my body image at all. And then it started getting deep. My relationship is starting to go. If I could just get into a better headspace, then I feel like my relationship will be better. My husband is, you know, thinking about leaving me. He's been telling me how fat I am. And then the tears start coming out. And I was like, whoa. And I look at him afterwards. I'm like, did you see what just happened? I'm like, all we have to do, because once you tell me overweight, habits, better, I need to be in better, I can answer and say, so you told me that you want to be in better shape. Well, I can tell you this, by training here, blank, and then by doing so and following this, I can tell you that within like 45 to 90 days is where we've seen the most amount of change out of people. And if your husband does not look at you any different at that point, that dude is crazy. So I'm answering those types of questions directly from what's being given to me. And in the same way, I do the same thing with these athletes. I do the same thing with my coaches. It's okay, explain to me more. You know, is okay, so what you're telling me is this. Are you saying that if I put these workouts in this type of order, you're limited by your shoulder endurance on this one? So what if I were to just change the reps on here? Do you feel like you'd be able to continue that going? Yeah, I think I could do that. All right, awesome. Then we're gonna hit that for five or six sets with a 2-minute rest in between. Let's see how it goes. And so it's that type of thought and questioning and understanding that I think really helped with that, like continuing to progress.
Yeah, I've heard it said that some of the best communicators in the world, when they look at percentage breakdown, tend to listen about 70% of the time and speak 30%. And I think that's really resonated with me, especially when you're trying to build relationships with people, of how do we ask better questions, get more curious, because the more information we have, the more data we can work with. If you've got the solution, you can very quickly and succinctly tell them, like, hey, I know this is going to sound crazy or whatnot, but like, trust me, we can help you get to exactly everywhere you want to get to. And you've just described how you're going to stay motivated and encouraged to get there. And the same thing with athletes when they start seeing some of those plateaus of, rather than feeling like we're jumping in as the savior with all the answers, let's ask questions. Let's figure out and get to the bottom of where we're at. And I know I've heard you speak before of how you think about programming and how much thought and energy and time you put into that. When you look back kind of on your career to this stage and looking at, I don't think they're two different areas, but the technical side of the progressions and the sets and the reps and the movements versus the people side, building relationships, connecting with folks. How do those two break down? And maybe they've changed over time after having accumulated enough knowledge on how to actually program for people. But out of those two buckets, how's that sort of panned out over the years?
It's extremely important. You know, if it was just X's and O's and it had nothing to do with personality, I feel like that would be rather easy. And a lot of people would achieve their goals at a much quicker rate. But the way you communicate with your athletes, the way you explain things, intention, purpose, it's all very, very important. And I think a great example would be, I have this athlete that I write in for this athlete specific sprinting effort, and sprinting on hands, sprinting with legless rope climbs. And I would have to tell this athlete, I need you to be like a bat out of hell. And I see it, I go, I need you to be more reckless. And I look and I'm like, I need you to be on the verge of injury because you're so reckless that like I'm scared for you. And I'm trying to develop this thought of like, you might feel that, but from my perspective, from the audience's perspective, it just looks like you're just moving quick. It might feel like you're out of control. Like at any point in time, like You might fall over on a handstand walk. At any point in time, you look crazy. It just looks weird that you're doing like rope climb, just swinging your legs as fast as you can. It's not like that at all. And so for one athlete, it might be that. For another athlete, it's slow down. I don't need you putting all of your bar, your box, skier in a teeny tiny 3 by 3 foot square because you want to be moving as fast as you can. That's not the purpose here. I'm like, spread this out, put this here, relax. All right. Like, you are already really, really good at being reckless. This is not about that. I need you to bring it back in, relax a little bit for me, take it easy, hold this pace right here, hold that pace right there, and trust it. And if I see something that needs to be changed, I'll step in and I'll help change it for you.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that perspective. I think it wraps up so much of the insightful words that you've shared so far today about how to balance relationships, how to balance the technical side of programming, and what you've learned over the years about asking better questions, being more curious, trying to figure out and build champions and whatever that definition is for the folks that you get a chance to work with Brute. And so for those out there who are interested to connect either with you or learn a little bit more about Brute, what are the best ways that folks can find out and learn more about you and Brute?
Yeah, so the best way is to, first off, get on Instagram, follow us. You can follow me at Hey Coach Matt. You can follow Brute at Brute Strength. That's the number one way. The next thing is, if you are interested in taking your fitness to the next level, it could be something as simple as like, I just want to be better in my gym. Follow one of our template programs. It's super, super easy to follow. And it's done in a way where you're doing training, not fun workouts. And then if you're at the level where you're like, I need something greater, take a look at our one-on-one programming. It's remote programming. We have some of the best coaches in the world. And I stick behind that. And, those coaches are with me in the warm-up area. They're helping me. Any chance I have a question, they're there to help guide me. If I need to figure out how to, progress out a gymnastics piece, or if I need to talk through an aerobic piece or a strength piece, they're all there for me. And so they are tremendous people.
Awesome. Well, I highly encourage you to check out Matt and the team over there at Brute and learn more from them. They've got great insight, great information. Congratulations on the year that the athletes had. I know how exciting that must be, and getting a chance to soak it all in, and excited to see what the future holds for Brute and where you're excited to take the company, son. Thanks so much for taking some time today.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. Thanks for having me.